Good morning, YouTube. Today we're going to go into a second video on what we covered last week, which is how to transition from what people are taught to do on their W-2 job and where their money goes, and what you need to do to start kind of gaining momentum and getting some traction. I know, most people are very frustrated that they say they work and they work and they work hard, but they don't feel like they're getting any traction. They're not building the kind of wealth and security that they want. They don't have the things that they want, and so we're going to go to a second video and use kind of the same template, but what I want to do is to simplify that template and remove the things that you're probably already doing, and then talk about how the things that you can begin doing will affect your outcome, and also which of those things will help prepare you for inflationary environment that's coming and are protected in that way. So let me just jump right into it. So this is kind of the same sheet we used last time, and it's talking about your W-2 job that you have and your side gig that you have. And many times people have these things and they do the work. They're doing maybe 95% of what you have to do to start getting traction. And the other 5% are just things that they've never known to do. Maybe they can't see the outcome of those things when they start. It doesn't maybe feel good in your head. It doesn't give you a dopamine rush to do. And so understanding those correlations is a little bit, you kind of have to trust and try them and then see how it works out. So we're going to take these, and so if you are a middle class, if you're like lower than middle class, you probably got maybe a W-2 job and a checking account, and if you look at what you're doing, this is what you're doing. You're renting and you have a checking and savings account, and you're spending and you make, and you spend and you make, and you spend and you make. And that's kind of what you do, and you're probably a little frustrated about that. Now if you're middle class, you're spending and making, and you're also, maybe you're saving for retirement and you bought a home, those two things, and you say, hey, I'm doing great, I'm doing what my parents were doing, but inflation is killing me, I can't get traction in what I'm doing. And so let's just take those things right off the list and just hide those, because this is really going to be about what you can do that is different to get a result that's different than the current result that you're getting. And so we're going to even say you have a side gig, maybe you sell things on eBay that you don't need, maybe you have a garage sale. Lots of people have little things that they do to make a little extra money on the side. Maybe there's a side job that somebody you work with has, and you do some work on there. And so those are great things, but we're going to take that off because you're already doing that, and it feels a little better to get that little extra coming in, but it allows you to go out on Friday night and some things like that. And so we're going to talk about the things that help you get in the place that maybe you'd rather be in. And so number one is, I will tell you, at many people's works, especially if they work for a company that has stock, you can buy with your paycheck stock in your company, and sometimes there's even an advantage to that, and that stock gives you a small profit in maybe the dividend that they pay on that stock. It also may increase in value over time, and we'll just say 10%, because that's what a lot of stocks have done over a period of time. And this is not really important, the amount, but just that it is in the category of things that does that, okay? If it's a car, it's not going to ever increase in value. And it gives you access to capital. It gives you access to money that you can sell to do something else with that is wise. And so we're going to say that's one thing you could do. So stock ownership plan. Investments, you have got, I'm going to take this one off because it's kind of duplicate right here. And we're going to talk about this brokerage account. This brokerage account is just an account with a bank. I'm going to put a link below to SoFi. I don't use SoFi, I use Charles Schwab, but I'm kind of an old guy. But my wife and my kids use SoFi, and so I'm going to give you a link to SoFi. And in SoFi, you can set up some type of money that goes from your paycheck or your checking account into an investment account. Now, initially, your money is going to go into this cash account, and this cash account gives you access to capital. And they're not spending the capital, but it does not start you on your journey to cash flow, profit, and value increase. And so, yes, you want some access to capital in order to push into some of these other things down here, but we're going to take that off the board because really that's not going to create a difference that you want. And we're going to say automatic, something going in every month to this brokerage account into an investment. Two investments that I have are VIG. I also have seen VOO, which are very neutral investments. They're going to go up and down with the market, but you are not really looking to beat the market. You are more looking to create a situation where, as opposed to before, you have access to capital. If you have a good investment, you have some amount of profit, and you also have cash flow in that dividend going in the account. So these are two good places that you can create that. Also, government bonds. Sometimes you can put them in government bonds or a money market and create like a 5%. Now this does not give you a value increase, but it also gives you access to capital. And so if you kind of ask me off the bat, I would probably put you about 50% here and 50% here. Now, that's not as a long-term target, but that's just for now. You can set it up every month, and now you're actually in the game. If you only have the things that we eliminated from the plan, you are not in the game. And we'll talk a little bit more about the two down below and tell you how those do or do not get you along the lines. And so you're looking to create cash flow, profit, value increase, and capital gains, and capital access, okay? Now, if you look at inflation and how inflation is affecting things, inflation is going to destroy these government bonds because it's going to be higher later than it is even now. And so this is not going to be protected. And so we're going to call this short term. And this is short term, so you can use this to move into some other things down here. Now, a rental house has incredible inflation protection, both in the value of the house and in any debt that you have in the house, because those two things are incredible to have from an inflation standpoint. What's not incredible to have from an inflation standpoint is a W-2 job where someone else controls your pay, and probably does not increase it by the true rate of inflation anyway, because the rate of inflation, let's say last year was, let's say 8%, and raises were not that high, even because the government said they wasn't 8%. So crypto, you've got holders that they just hold the crypto, such as Bitcoin, and Bitcoin creates no cash flow, no profit, has a value increase, yes. So it does have some inflation protection, but it also gives you access to capital. You could sell it and buy a different investment. But if that's not the right investment to be in, maybe we should eliminate that from the list for now, because our intention is to create profits and cash flow, some inflation protection, some value increase, so it increases over time, and then give ourselves access to capital, because as we start using these principles to make better decisions, we're going to need that access to buy the next rental house and those type of things. So this is what I'm going to focus you on, is these things. So immediately you can go into your deposit at work, and you could put money into your stock ownership plan and start creating some profit, increase in cash flow. Now, if you're only doing the things that we eliminated from this plan, you might say, well, I'm not getting any traction because I don't make enough money, or those things. But in actuality, you're just not playing the right game. You're actually playing the game of the W-2 that you were taught, as opposed to playing the game of your profit, cash flow, and value increase, which is what you have to do to actually be successful in the game of profit, cash flow, and value increase, right? So if you're not playing that, you're not going to win. Maybe you see all these people that have cars, and they have things that you associate with wealth, but the ones that actually make decisions on these might at some point use some of these to buy some of those things. So you buying it out of your W-2 job creates slavery. Them buying it out of their profits just means they have less profits than they had before. So these are the things that you really need to kind of take a snapshot and put on your spreadsheet and say, how much of these things am I doing today? And I would guess most people, the numbers are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So don't fault yourself for not doing them because you didn't know to, but now you know. And the question is, how do you do those? So number one is you can do a small amount here. You can do that on Monday. If you say, I have no money, I don't have the money to do that, I didn't put the amount here. What I would have you focus on is not the amounts of things you're doing other things, but the fact that you are. And now I give yourself credit if you're doing other things. So a small amount here, and then I would put a small amount here into that kind of default investment every month. And your goal is to go from 0 cash flow and profit to something. If you take 0 cash flow and profit and you multiply it times 10, you still have 0. But if you get to the point that you're at something and you can multiply times 10, now you're at something more significant. And so that's what I would do. Also, once you have these going, now you have some access to capital and some protection from inflation that you did not have before. And that's when you start looking at other types of investments, such as rental houses. Now, a rental house, you would have to have, use some of your access to capital to maybe fund a large down payment. Because on rental house number one thing I would encourage is you to, when you run your numbers, try to get your cash flow number on that property as high as possible. If you can buy it with cash, it's going to be 10%, but let's say you buy it with 25% cash, 50% cash, something like that. You can get this number up to 6%. And so this cash flow and this capital right here is really what enables you to do the next thing. Long term, the value increase is important, but it's really not that much of an enabler unless you're going to borrow against it, and then the payment on that goes against your cash flow. And so having a higher cash flow, especially on property number one, can help set you up to do property number two. Okay? And property number two might be a different situation. Now you have the cash flow from one. You maybe did property number two and you didn't get as much cash flow, but you got some. And you still have the value increase and the capital access and those things. So over time, you're trying to build up this capital access, build up this cash flow and this profit, because the profit goes to capital, goes back over here, so that you can do better, maybe larger deals. And the other thing I want you to consider in this situation is which of these things sets you up to do the next thing, not just from a financial standpoint, because right now you are very focused on money and getting money and spending money, and you might say, I'm not really focused on that, it's not important to me. So that argument would go like this: how much do you make per year? You would say, I make $45,000. I'd say, how much do you spend per year? You'd say, I spend $45,000. And I'd say, well, then you're very focused on it because you're spending all of it. If you're making 60 and spending 40, then I'd say, okay, maybe you're not focused on it. Maybe that's not your driver. But if you're spending 45 and you're making 45, your driver for what you're doing is pretty much money, because you're just trying to get a little bit of buffer and pay the bills right now, which is a very hard situation to be in. So these are the things I would say, and this is the way to start. Now you get a significant amount in here. You start looking at houses. You find a great deal. You cash in part of this, and you put a large down payment on this, and now you're creating more cash flow and more capital access. Then you can keep going down the road and use those things to create more cash flow, more capital access. Now, when do you buy something? Well, the most expensive thing I think you can buy with this stuff is retirement. The fact that you don't have to work at your W-2 job because you fed this enough that it is kind of self-sustaining, and that's ultimately your goal, is a self-sustaining situation where you're doing it, but it doesn't require more money to come in. And you can see as you build these rentals, cash flow, capital access, then that will change the situation that you're in. In fact, if you get down the road and in the last year or so the market has been horrible, so everything that you've been buying, even if you're buying a fantastic property, is that a negative cash flow. Maybe positive profit, great value increase because you're buying it below what it's going to be worth now, and things that other people aren't buying it. But you're getting this, and you're getting this, but you're maybe losing over here, right? Well, you've built that up so that now, as the market's not as good, you can sacrifice some of this to get some of this right now, and then let this cash flow come up as rents come up over a period of time. So I know this is probably a long video, but I wanted to share with you not just all the things you could do, but the difference in things that you should do that is a very, very, very small tweak from what you're doing today, but can really put you in a whole lot better situation as far as stability, family, retirement, whether you can pay for your kids' college some, whether you have to finance your cars, those type of things. So I'll talk to you later, and like and subscribe down below. Again, the Sofi link's down there in case you need to set up this brokerage account. But there's several places you can do it. This just makes it easier. I think it's like a $25 referral if you do that, and I will talk to you later.